I'm Jim Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Forsyth County Connections, coming to you from the studios of Cable 2 under the auspices of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System, and we appreciate their hospitality throughout this series. We have a lot going on in this half hour, some great guests, important information, including a discussion about opportunity zones that you may be interested in, that and a whole lot more. But where we want to start is talking about the new budget for Forsyth County. And there's one person that knows everything about that, so I dragged him in here to try to clear up a couple things. Dudley Watts is county manager of Forsyth County, also serves as executive producer of this series. We welcome you on both counts, and let's get to it. But you know, I know what I was going to say. Before we talk about the budget in depth, you were quoted in the newspaper recently, and somebody said something like, Mr. Watts, what about the 2021-22 year that's sort of ending? Right. And you said it was a good year. What did you mean by that?
It was, from a financial perspective, it was an amazing year. Revenues came in strong. You know, the economy held through the year, and there were points in it when you just didn't know what that was going to happen or not. And you remember back as COVID surged again through the middle of the year, and so but all in all, it turned out very good. So we started budgeting the 23 year from a really good place.
That's great. Now, let me get into this. First, I'm kind of curious, what are your responsibilities as county manager versus the responsibility of the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners, in terms of trying to formulate this budget?
Yeah, so most people probably do not know that the General Assembly in North Carolina regulates the budget process for local governments extensively. And so this large document is what is called the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. And it is very specific about what county commissions and what city councils have to do to adopt a budget. You've got to have a balanced budget. It has to be adopted by a certain period of time. It establishes the tax rate that's implicit in that. And it talks about what county managers have to do and what city council folks have to do, or county commissions have to do as well. And so my job, as outlined in the state law, is to present them a recommended budget in a certain time period to allow them to adopt it by June 30th. And then the council, the county commissioners' responsibilities, they have the awesome responsibility of setting a tax rate where they generate revenue for.
All right, now how did the budget turn out? Because I know a lot of people, one thing they're thinking about is there going to be a tax increase?
Right. So the board, as we entered kind of the final part of the budget process, the board made it pretty clear they did not see the need for a tax increase. Revenues have been strong. You know, the underlying fundamentals were good, and so this is a non-revaluation year, so the rate did not move based on the valuation of property. And so, except for a few limited exceptions, everyone's tax bill will be what it was last year. The only exception would be if they've added onto the home or what have you. Right. Things like that, or if they're in a tax district where the rate got increased. And so,
yeah.
So yeah.
Now, what about I read somewhere that, and you might have sent it to me in an email too, that there were actually two votes taken on this budget. There was one version and there was another version. What was the difference between the two options?
Yeah, so I submit my recommendations to the board. They always change it. They always add things that are important to them through that. And so there was an option 1 and an option 2. And so at the end of the process, the board, a motion was made for the first option that failed. And then the motion was made for the second option, and it passed on a 5-2 vote, I believe.
You've been around a while. I know that people say, oh, you're a young-looking fellow, but you've been around for a while. You've done 16 of these budgets that you've recommended. Yeah. What are you going to remember about this one in particular? Anything?
This one was a very unusual budget. You had lots of uncertainty in the economy. You had a good revenue cycle that we were going into. And there's also a lot of other money that's out there because we're dealing with ARPA funds. Now we've got the opioid settlement dollars. And so it was just a very unusual budget. I'm glad we were able to keep the tax rate the same. But there are decisions the board's going to make over the coming year, which I hope we talk about in this program, about how that budget gets amended and how we deal with the settlement dollars, how we deal with round 2 of ARPA dollars, and how all those integrate in with this base budget that we approved here in June.
That's good. All right, when we get you back sometime, we'll talk about what the folks at home can look forward to in this budget that maybe will affect their lives directly. Dudley, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
We'll be right back after this.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
DEPR.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale.
Bipolar?
Sorting out a mental health concern takes professional diagnosis and treatment.
Anxiety. I thought so.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
Back now on Forsyth County Connections, and I know I keep saying things like, hey, I want to learn more about this or learn more about that, but here's something that I know nothing about, and this is about the coroner. What is a coroner? What does a coroner do? And so I thought, let's get somebody who knows the law and knows all about this stuff in here, and we found him wandering around the building, and I grabbed him in here. Gordon Watkins has been on the show before. He's a county attorney for Forsyth. Welcome back.
It's great to be here.
Now, I understand that all North Carolina counties used to elect coroners, and a few still do. How did the office of coroner get created in North Carolina?
Well, it goes way back even before that. The office was created in the year 1275 by Edward I of England, and it comes from the Latin corona, which means crown. And so this was one of the chief officers of the crown. And at first, they were assigned not only to investigate deaths, but also to investigate treasure troves and shipwrecks. And
Wow.
so that came over to North Carolina and was the law, and is still the law technically, but most counties don't have coroners anymore.
Well, now, what authority did coroners typically have
So if you
in the modern era?
If you think back to, say, 1776, when North Carolina became independent, we really didn't have great medicine at the time. And so coroners would investigate deaths. When someone died, they would try to determine, how that person died.
Well, what is if somebody discovers a dead body, I know this sounds like morbid stuff, but it's serious. What would the coroner do if somebody, notified the county that, hey, we discovered a dead body on this property, or it's a family member? What would they do?
So back before the 1950s, what would happen is if a family member or some member of the public found a dead body, they would call the coroner. The coroner would show up, and the coroner would then investigate as to what the cause of death was. And so what the coroner could do if there was a suspicious death or unnatural death,
Right.
they would convene an inquest, a jury of 6 men originally, and then also men and women, and those folks would look into what happened, and they would even determine who the murderer was,
Gosh.
in their opinion.
So they had a lot of responsibilities, including, it seems like they acted almost as a medical professionals. So what kind of qualifications were required then to be a coroner?
So the odd part is there were none. Anyone could be elected coroner. You don't have to have any medical requirements to be elected coroner.
Good Lord. Now, when we watch TV dramas and we see things like these inquests or legal hearings or whatever, are there any legal requirements for being, when they were electing a coroner, requirements that have to follow the law, or did it sound like there wasn't much there?
There really wasn't much there. They had to be a citizen and to be elected. And the odd part was the jury that they selected for the inquest, there was no procedure for that, so they could just pick 6 of their friends if they wanted to.
Well,
and so it was
why not? Yeah.
highly unregulated.
Now, is there, and I know it's a dumb question, but does Forsyth County still have an elected coroner in any shape or form?
No, that was abolished in 1969. What happened was in the 50s, the state realized that this was a little bit of a backward situation, especially because of the advances in medicine, and so the state established the medical examiner system, which still exists today, and so they really take on the duties that a coroner used to do, and there are no more inquests or juries like there used to be.
So the medical examiner takes care of this, looks at the causes and looks into it the same way, takes over those responsibilities. That's interesting. I didn't know the history about that, but I appreciate you taking us through that.
Certainly.
And I know you're busy, and we've been busy doing the budget, and we've been covering some of that on here too. But thanks for stopping by and doing this.
It's It's my pleasure.
All right. We'll be right back after this.
This is what too much sounds like. This is what stress feels like. And this is what help feels like. If you've lost a job, worry about your next meal, or have trouble making it through the day, we can help. Text STRESS to 211-211 to find a solution.
Back now for Forsyth County Connections, and I'd like to learn more about opportunity zones. You might have read something about it in the newspaper or heard about it, but let's find out more in detail with a gentleman that knows all about them. Kyle Haney's been a visitor to the show before. We welcome him back. He's Director of Community and Economic Development for Forsyth County. Good to see you again.
Glad to be back, Jim.
Let's first sort of give a quick definition. What is an opportunity zone?
Absolutely. So the Opportunity Zone program was created as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in December of 2017. And so the goal of it was really to drive investment into areas that hadn't seen investment, low income census tracts. And so, it's complicated like some federal programs are, but, they selected specific census tracts and encourage, through tax benefits, investors to invest in businesses in those areas.
Now, I know we don't have any maps up or anything, and people can go and look this stuff up later on, but in general, can you sort of identify for me where these opportunity zones are in the county, just to give me a general idea?
Absolutely. So we had 11 census tracts that were designated opportunity zones. Start downtown, pretty much all the census tracts downtown, go north along University Parkway, south along 52, between 52 and New Walkertown Road, and then there's one all by itself in the southeast corner of the county.
Now, I think we were talking off camera about this, but in the beginning when you sort of designated these, did a business or a potential business come to you, or a city council person or a commissioner? Did somebody say, hey, Kyle, we think you ought to have this zone here or here? Or did you just sort of pick them out? How did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a lot of interested parties call, and when they heard about this program and lobby for some, certainly the city council and city staff came to us. Ultimately, we took all of that information as well as our knowledge of where there are business opportunities, and the county commissioners recommended 11 census tracts, which the state approved and the IRS approved.
Now, you were talking about funding. You hit on that, and I think I interrupted you, but how is it funded, and who actually gets the money when the checks are written?
Absolutely. So, the federal government, when they passed this, wanted to make it as accessible as possible. Obviously, it's still a federal program, so it's kind of complicated. But essentially, a taxpayer, whether an individual or a company, if they have capital gains in a year, they can take those capital gains and invest it in a business or a business property in an opportunity zone. And so normally they'd have to pay taxes on those capital gains. This defers those taxes until after December 31st, 2026.
Wow.
And as long as they keep that investment there, they actually pay less taxes on those capital gains in that year.
So there's a real give and take there with some accountability, because we've all heard of instances where somebody will come in and then leave after a couple of years, but this is for the long term, right?
It is, absolutely. So there's that benefit, and the secondary benefit, if they keep that investment for 10 years, any capital gains they get on the actual investment, so if they invest in the property and they get capital gains from that investment, they don't have to pay taxes on them.
Good grief. Now, what beyond what you just talked about, are there some specific guidelines so that I get in there and say, yeah, I've got the money now, we're going to do this investment, but there's got to be some guidelines as to what you can and cannot spend the money on, right?
Absolutely. So there are qualifying business property and qualifying businesses that can be invested in. I'll be honest with you, it's federal tax law and it's complicated. There are a lot of attorneys out there working on these. And they've set up structures, opportunity funds, where investors can participate in those funds, and the fund will actually do the investment and manage all that for them.
Yeah, before time gets away, I just wanted to get your thought on this. Obviously, you believe in these a lot, and you're enthusiastic about them, and it promotes economic development in general, doesn't it?
It does. There's benefits to the investors. There's also benefits to the businesses in that community who might receive investment. And there's benefits to the citizens who live in that community, because they're creating jobs and creating businesses in that community as well.
Absolutely. To stay here and make a living here and have their kids go to school here, the whole deal. Is there a website or anything where people can learn more about opportunity zones?
Sure. Well, I'll say mapforsyth.org has a lot of really great maps. There's an economic development tool there that shows exactly where all those opportunity zones are. And certainly they can reach out to our department, and we're happy to talk to them and discuss more about the opportunity zones.
Now, can they get to your department through the website if I say, hey, I heard about this on TV and I'd like to maybe put a business in one of these zones? I mean, how do they get in touch with you directly?
If they go to the main website, forsyth.cc, click on the Department of Community and Economic Development, they can contact us through there.
All right, good deal, Kyle. Thanks for clearing that up.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll be right back after this.
So, I keep hearing how things are getting back to normal. Really? When am I back to normal? What is normal anyway? I can't even remember. Is this normal? Seriously? No. Was this ever normal? Please. I think this used to be normal. Then I figured out. Just stop it. So much has changed. No wonder nothing feels normal. But here I am, still standing. A brand new edition of me. This is no time to go back to anything. It's time to go forward and discover the new person I am now. I'm all in. For some great tips on finding your new normal, visit yourlifeyourvoice.org. You look familiar.
Back now on Forsyth County Connections, and I was wondering the other day about what happens if you see a damaged or missing street sign. I mean, street signs are pretty important, let's face it. And so I called up and started bugging this gentleman to come over here for a few minutes and just see if he could make some sense out of this. He's been a visitor to the show before. We welcome back Kirby Robinson. He's Deputy Director of General Services for Forsyth County. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me back.
First of all, before I start asking some of these questions, is this even a big problem of missing and damaged street signs, or am I making too much of this?
Well, I mean, in the unincorporated parts of the county, which is where our department maintains these signs, it happens more often than you think. And we probably replace or repair a couple hundred a year.
Wow. Now, I mean, does that run into I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what kind of money does this run into? I mean, what does the county typically spend to try to take care of this thing?
No, I appreciate the question. So a lot of times, when you think of signs, you think of a missing sign. Somebody's absconded with it or run over it or whatever. So there's two types of things we do. We do some preventative maintenance out there. We're actually driving around looking for problems with signs so folks don't have to call us. And so we're repairing them then, or we're replacing them if they go missing or whatever it may be. Our budget here is about $14,000 a year, and that's from the ground up. So that buys the blanks, we buy the vinyl, we cut it ourselves, we make it ourselves. So it's all materials.
So
and
it's all
supplies.
done in-house?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty cool. Now, how would somebody go? We can put up a phone number later in the segment, but generally speaking, how does someone report a missing or damaged street sign? And who, even when we give them the number later on, how are they going to know who to ask for? Well, I saw Kirby on TV, but do I ask for John Smith? Or what's the process of trying to report something?
Well, first of all, I'd be flattered if somebody called and asked for me. That would be nice. But no, what I would tell folks is we're here to help. I mean, signage is a surprisingly complex part of government, and who does what, right? So you said you'll put the number up, but our office number is 703-2200, and we also have an online portal on the county's website where folks can go and say, hey, something's wrong with this sign. We encourage folks to reach out to us because, as you mentioned, there can be a couple of different things wrong with a sign. Maybe it's a type of sign we don't maintain, but we're here to help, and if folks reach out to us, we're going to take care of them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because there are lots of different signs there, and this goes back to my days of taking a driver's ed test, whatever. There's informational signs and commercial signs about advertising and whatever. There's all kinds of signs. Does the county get into the business of replacing other types of signs, or is it just the street signs within the confines of the county?
So there's really two kind of steps there. It's number one, where is it and what is it? So if you're within the town limits somewhere, typically whatever that sign is, it's going to be that municipality's responsibility to replace, or the state of North Carolina. If you're out in the unincorporated parts of the county, so not within the town or the city limits of whatever it may be, the county is responsible just for road name signs. The state then would handle all other signage on the road.
All right, and I guess there's some coordination there, and you can tell people who they could talk to about that. All right, suppose I see a sign that's down, and I say, hey, this is major. We need to get this thing fixed. And I call in. I call the number you mentioned. I won't hold you to it, but about generally, how long does it take from the time somebody calls in to the time it actually gets fixed.
No, and we want folks to hold us to a high standard there. So in general services, we operate like a business. The citizens of the county are our customers. So we want to provide prompt and efficient service to their request. No more than 5 business days that should be repaired or replaced.
All right, and I want to go over this phone number again. Now, also, is there a website or something people can go to?
Yeah, if you go to the county's main page, forsyth.cc, it's www.forsyth.cc, there's a drop-down list of departments. We're in general services. Click on that. You'll see a big sign, looks like a road name sign at the bottom. That's our online portal. And again, our office number is 703-2200. Folks can call, and we're happy to direct them. If we don't replace the sign, that's fine. Give us a call. We'll find out who does.
Good information, and I know that you had a whole lot of things on your plate for today. I appreciate you stopping by and doing this, but I was just something I was interested in. I appreciate you clearing it up.
Appreciate you having me back.
Thanks, Kirby. We'll be right back after this.
There's so much to see in this life's journey, and the view just keeps getting better. But untreated hearing loss can put us at risk for missing out. Stay connected so you can keep doing what you love. Get a hearing health check every year.
Every year, 4.5 million young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 visit the ER.
It's every parent's nightmare.
Umergency gives you all the tools you need to quickly and effectively manage your family's emergency. Umergency provides instant access to vital resources, customized to your student's campus and local community, digital consent form, and built-in urgent alert button. Umergency gives you peace of mind when you need it most. Download your Umergency app now.
Back now on Forsyth County Connections. You have seen this gentleman on the program before as we talk about all sorts of things having to do with parks and recreation and operations, and he's with us again. Chris Weevil, Assistant Director of Parks Operations in Forsyth County. Good to have you back.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We wanted to focus a few minutes. I was talking to County Manager Dudley Watts one day, and he said, let's focus on Triad Park, because a lot of people have heard of it, maybe hadn't been there. I guess you could describe it being unique in the truest sense of the word, because I don't know of any other park around that straddles 2 different counties, Guilford and Forsyth. When was it built, and how did the 2 counties work together to get it done?
Well, Jim, this started off actually probably a few years before I was even on this earth. I think back in the late 60s, some of our community leaders and county leaders, and actually some state leaders, they got together in the late 60s and were looking for a site for a 6,000-acre regional park.
Yeah.
So that would kind of be in the heart of the triad between Winston, Greensboro, and Guilford County. I think the site that was actually chosen for Triad Park was even at one time, it was considered as a site for possibly the state zoo. I think they were looking for that about the same time. Right. So all that came about. In 1988, a bond referendum was held by the folks in Guilford County, and that passed. In 1989, there was a bond referendum for land acquisition in Forsyth County, and that passed. And in 1993, we bought 400 acres of land. In 1994, we did a master plan for the park. 1995, we started construction, and in 2015, we finished construction. So it's been a long endeavor, 20 years worth of construction. There's 8 total phases of the park, and it straddles the line of the county line of Forsyth County and Guilford County.
It's a great place. What for folks who don't know, what are some of the main features of the park? If they go out there, what will they see?
If we go out, we've got 3 300-person picnic shelters. We've got 125-person picnic shelter. We've got a 4-court volleyball complex. We've got a softball field, a soccer field. We've got 3.5 miles of paved walking trails. We've got about 2 miles of unimproved nature trails. We've got 3 playgrounds. And we've also got the largest war memorial on the East Coast outside of Washington, D.C.
We were talking off camera about our buddy Rich, the late Rich Brenner, the late great Rich Brenner, and others, Dave Plyler and others, who really helped get that effort going and put the finishing touches on it for the Veterans Memorial. So important. Lots of great things there. It's an important memorial, isn't it?
It is. That particular site is actually located within Triad Park. It's a 8-acre site located within the park, as I said. And it was started by the War Memorial Board. They got together, they came up with this idea, they petitioned, I guess, our county leaders. We got on the spot there within Triad. They built the memorial. If you've not been out there, it's a 56-foot tall center obelisk. I think
Beautiful.
I think they said the base piece weighed like 65,000 pounds. It's got a 10,000 gallon reflecting pool, fountain around it. There are thousands of engraved pavers.
Yeah, it's just a great place to reflect, and of course you have ceremonies and stuff. Let me, before I forget, I want to circle back to something. You were talking about all the picnic shelters and the volleyball and the softball fields, whatever. Now those are all places that if I want to go having a function with a business or a family, I need to reserve those, right?
Sure. All of our facilities are, reservable. So to do that, you can go to our website I think it's forsyth.cc/parks. You can go on there and it lists all of our 9 park locations. You can click on the park that you're looking for to rent, find the facility. There is an availability calendar on there, and if your date's available, just call our office at 703-2500, and we'll get you set up.
All right, say the phone number again.
The phone number is area code 336-703-2500.
Now, is there, let's say, hey, I found online that there's a picnic shelter available and we want to play volleyball. Is there a fee for something like that?
There is a fee. The fees are online, and they vary from facility to facility, depending on what size that you're looking at and what size group you're going to have.
Now, there's a big fish pond out there. I guess before you leave here, because I know you got some other things to do, what's the biggest fish that's ever been caught out there?
Well, you said the key word. It's a pond, so it's not very big. It's right at an acre. I think that kind of limits the size of some of the fish out there, but I did have the opportunity to see a young man several months ago, I think fishing with his grandfather, and he pulled out a fish. Of course, it was about maybe a pound, maybe 2 pounds. I'm sure in his mind it was 10 pounds.
Yeah, by the time they got home, it was 5 pounds.
So I'm sure that was probably the biggest fish. He at least told everybody it was the biggest fish that had ever been caught.
Well, I tell you, fish tails or not, I appreciate the information you've imparted on us and all the good work that you do to help keep things going with the parks. And I hope people will check out that website and call the number and go out to Triad Park. So thanks for doing this, Chris, and thanks for stopping by with us. That's it for this edition of Forsyth County Connections. But if you could see, as you can see from the monitors here, we've had it up all during the program, connectwith.forsythcountync.gov. That's the general website. You can check out things. I want to give another shout out to our executive producer, County Manager Dudley Watts, and of course the crew here at Cable 2, TJ James and Kevin Wren, and towards our good buddy Tracy Doyle, who puts everything together for this show. So grateful for all the hospitality and good work, folks here at Cable 2 and everybody else. For all of us here, Forsyth County Connections, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next time.